It's Danny B here again. Today all the fun starts. We've covered all the hard work in the previous videos, and all that's left is for us to manage our sale. Now there are just three things we need to take care of now. Managing comments and messages that we'll receive during the sale, providing great service, and then managing the after-sales process. Now the key to managing your sale is to be prompt and polite with responses. That doesn't mean you have to be available 24 hours a day. Just reply in a timely fashion. Now, one thing to note is that if anyone places a bid in the final 4 hours of a Flippa auction, it will extend the auction by another 4 hours until there are no bids placed in the final 4 hour period. A little confusing, but it makes sense. Now, let's just jump in and take a look. So let's get started. I'm just going to pull up a few examples randomly of what actually happens in most auctions on Flippa. Now, most of your interaction with customers, potential buyers, will be here down in the comments section. Throughout the listing, potential buyers will be asking you questions about the listing. It's your job to respond in here in a timely, polite fashion again. There's one thing I want to mention, and this is, I did pull this up at random, this is a perfect example. PM reserve please. What that is asking you to private message the reserve price of the auction. And the simple response is you don't. When you think about it, when you're buying a house, you don't go to the auction and ask the auctioneer for the reserve price. It's just not an auction practice that's successful, and once you do it, you basically lose. So in this example, the actual seller has sent the reserve price, but my advice to you is don't do it. And the simple response is, and one that I use all the time, is sorry, I can't divulge the reserve price as part of the auction process. It's not good practice to reveal it. And it's as simple as that. Now, I never have any issues with it afterwards, but again, it's just being firm and polite. Now, when dealing with selling on Flippa, you're online. So, like most places you visit online, it has its good and its bad. Most people on Flippa are there for genuine reasons and looking to buy and sell web properties. And occasionally, like everywhere, you're going to get people that are there just for whatever reason to stir the pot a little, cause a little bit of trouble. And it usually happens when it does in the comment section. I don't like really deleting any comments, which you have the facility to do in Flippa, because then your stream has deleted comments messages in there, and it gives a message to people of, or something, what's going on here, what is this seller trying to hide. So what I try and do is, if I have an inappropriate comment, I'll report the comment by clicking on this link here, and I'll actually just put in a response for other people to read that this comment was inappropriate, or it's just a silly comment, but I've responded to it in a way that sort of diffuses any issue as best I can. And I find that is a much better option than going through deleting comments. Obviously, if something is extremely inappropriate, I delete it, and I'll also put a new comment of my own underneath the deleted comment to explain why it was deleted. So it's all about that authenticity and keeping everything as above board as I possibly can and not hurting the auction. A pro tip for when you're buying, or actually when you're selling on Flippa rather, is that everyone who's following your auction will be updated any time anything new happens to your auction. So whether there is a comment or a bid placed, if you're following an auction, you'll receive an alert that an auction you're following has had something change on it. So good strategy is when you get towards the end of an auction, because an auction works, all auctions tend to follow the same process, that when you first list, there's a bit of interest and attraction because it's new and people are alerted that there's a new auction happening. So you get a bit of traffic that way, and you'll get a few bidders. And then what tends to happen with almost all auctions is there's a big lull in the middle, because you've had the early bidders and then everyone else is watching to see what happens. And what happens a lot of the time is people will panic in that middle section and start to think, oh well, no one's looking at this option, nothing's happening, and you'll see things like, I've changed the price. People start to panic and they're just trying to create more interest. And my advice is to you've got to sit out and just wait for it to unfold. But a good trick is when you get towards the end of an auction, a great strategy is to actually post some comments, and they've got to be genuine comments related to the sale, and that will alert people that, it's getting towards the end of that auction. Because if you're following a number of listings, you might forget as a buyer of what you're actually following. And it's a great alert. Just tell people that, this auction's coming near the end, so I better check it out. Now, the only other place you'll be communicating with people both during and post your Flippa auction is in the messages section. Now, every time someone sends you a private message, you'll receive an alert to your email account, and you simply just log into Flippa and click on messages, and you'll have a stream through here of messages from either potential buyers or the actual buyer once the sale's complete. Another pro tip in here, and this works really well, is any messages you receive in here during the auction that are about the auction and of value to the auction, I'll respond to in the comments section of the auction itself. So I will start a new comment and say something along the lines of, I've had this question asked about blah, blah, blah. I thought I'd put the response in here so it might help others, and then just respond in there. And why I do this is, there's a couple of reasons. One is to not have to answer the same question over and over, because you do get a lot of repeat questions. But this goes back to the previous videos of setting up the actual listing. So the more information we include in our listing, the less questions we'll usually have to answer. But we do get questions, and they will be a lot of the same questions. So I'll respond in the comment section, sort of both here direct back to the original asker of the question, and I'll also post the question and answer in the comment section. And it's good. Also, it creates activity around the sale. And another thing, you need to be promoting your sale. So I would be emailing any lists you might have, your Facebook page, Twitter, and just not bombarding people, but just sending updates, because you want to be driving traffic to the auction. Now, in the post-sale, there are a few important steps that just makes the whole thing an easy experience for everyone. And what I find is that this is the one area where most things can go wrong, because of the fact that if you look at it from a buyer perspective, you're a little worried that, have I done the right thing? Am I going to get what I've paid for? Am I basically going to get ripped off? So as a seller, it is your responsibility to really make this as smooth a transaction as possible. So what I like to do is, in the internal messaging, that's the thing, you've got to keep everything inside of Flippa. So all your correspondence needs to be in the internal Flippa messaging service, because you don't want to have any problems and not be able to provide accurate information. If it's inside of Flippa, everyone can see the correspondence. If you start going to external email and Skype, it's really hard to keep a record of those things, and people will argue, I didn't say that, or you've doctored some documents there. Look, it happens. So I like to keep everything inside of Flippa for as long as possible. So the first step is make contact as soon as possible. So it's just a matter of sending a message saying, congratulations, thank you for buying my site. I'll be in touch shortly with instructions, just to let the buyer know that you're there. And the next email I like to send is a request for payment. And it's just a polite way of saying, I can't do anything until you pay me. And I usually write an email saying, thank you for the purchase once again. If you haven't already, here are my PayPal details. Once I receive payment, I'll send the next instructions through of what we need to do. And so once payment's received, as Marty will show you in the next video, just send through instructions of what the process is of moving all the web properties to the new buyer, just so that they know, again, that you're taking care of things. And with that process, I'll follow up as each step is completed, send another message through Flippa, just letting them know that this and that has happened and we're now moving on to this next step. And I find I never have problems when I use that system. And then once everything's completed, don't just disappear. I always like to follow up the next couple of days after everything's done, just to ask how everything's going, anything I can help with. And it's a good way of building a relationship. And it's amazing at how many repeat customers I've had on Flippa by just doing that, by just following up and asking if there's anything else I can help with. And look, that really is about it. We've covered everything you sort of need to know to get a site up on Flippa and sell it and hand it over. There are, of course, a lot of different strategies that we can add to Flippa, but this really is the basics. And I use this system for selling high-end websites, so it works across the board. So I'm now going to hand you over to Marty, and thanks for watching me these past few videos, and good luck. Cheers.